Legend has it that Sir Isaac Newton formulated gravitational theory after watching an apple fall and asking why it fell straight down rather than sideways or even upwards. This led to his claim of the three laws of motion. The law of inertia, which claims that every object sitting still will continue sitting still until a force is acted upon it, just as every object moving will continue moving until a force is acted upon it. The law of force, which claims that force is equal not only to change in distance and the time it took for it to change, but also the mass of the object being moved. The law of action and reaction, which simple enough claims that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This isn't to say that for everything you push, you will get pushed back. It's to say that every action you take creates a momentum that is equal to the force of the action. Let's say that nature exists without human interference, that we can observe a natural momentum taking place in the environment that exists with or without our opinion or effect on it. All I would have to do is pick up one object and move it. This is where influence starts. Influence is the measurable force of change caused by behaviors, ideas, or beliefs. Oxford defines influence as the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone, something, or the effect itself. I started this, but so what I'm discussing is how to increase the value of your actions. Now, I've got a glass of tap water in this mug, and I'm going to take it over to the sink, and I'm going to perform the same action, which is I'm just going to turn my wrist. Now, obviously doing that wasn't that big of a deal, unless you want to talk about, saving water. But that same action would have a different value if performed in another location. Because now, due to the action, I've got to deal with a consequence. Which is that I gotta clean it up over here. That's the difference. But what I'm trying to determine is how to make that in a more positive direction. How to make it so that every time I attempt to spill a mug into an idea or a project or a goal, that I'm spilling it where I can get more consequences for what I'm doing to achieve the goal. In order to begin talking about what makes influence work, we have to discuss descriptive plane theory. And the best way to describe it is to give an example of it. So here, I have my girlfriend's phone, and what we can see is that I'm just holding the phone. That's all I'm doing right now. Now, my girlfriend has two choices right now. She has more than two choices, but she can describe this event as a couple of ways. She can say, I'm taking or stealing her phone right now for no reason. She could just say that I am. Why are you taking my phone? She could do that. All I did was pick it up. She could say that. Or she could say, no, it's not that big of a deal. She's picking my phone up. The way she describes the situation, not only through what she says about it, but how she reacts to it, has now created a momentum, a story, going beyond that point. That is descriptive plane theory. If I pick the phone up and she says I'm stealing it, and that's not what I was doing, I'll have to say, no, I'm not stealing it. I'll have to try and use some of my time, my effort, to get rid of a story that attempted to start, a description of what was happening that was not accurate according to what my intentions were. But if she just says I'm picking it up, or she doesn't even react, then it's not that big of a deal. It's not even enough of a story to give a descriptive plane to give a response to in any way. That's descriptive plane theory, how we describe what's happening in order to steer events and behaviors. So I can bring us back to my context video essay, pretty much describing the same thing. I just created another structure to help make the point more visible. But context and descriptive plane theory, context is what we're describing. It's the thing that is the theory that we're putting onto the plane. That is context. So that should connect that dot or that circuit or whatever this is. Alright, so here is a visual representation of how influence works. So pretty much we're each walking around with this idea or this belief about how life works and how existence is. And what we're doing is we're not only describing how we think things are with what we say, but we're describing how we think things are by our actions, and thus we're influencing things to be more how we think they are in the process. You'll notice that when two people disagree with one another, they are often racing to say how they think things are first and at a longer rate, because if you say more of what you think, that means that your opponent will have more to disprove before they can even begin saying what they think in the first place. This is sort of one of the tactics that's being taken advantage of when a person ruins another man's reputation to prevent him from even being perceived as having anything good to say. This is often why arguments stop being debates and start being petty character attacks. Now that we've discussed descriptive plane theory, we have determined what it is that gives our action any value in the first place. Context. But what within any given context can increase the mass, the weight, the depth of our actions' influence on the surrounding environment? I think the answer lies in the integrity behind your action. Now, integrity in an analogy of catch is what determines how far you're even capable of throwing a ball in the first place. The greater your integrity, the greater the distance your behavior is capable of affecting things. And the inverse is also true. The smaller or lesser your integrity, the lesser your influence. Now, there are three aspects to integrity: word, action, and intent. The first aspect is word. If I say I'm going to spill a drink and it is not followed by my spilling that drink, then it means that what I announced had no value. It lacked integrity. The second aspect is action. If I start an action but do not finish it, then that action has no real value. If I was to begin spilling a mug but then turn it back over before anything ever spilled out, then what did I actually do? The last aspect is intent, or morality, pretty much right and wrong. For the sake of keeping things out of subjective tone, let's say that there is a task, that there is a fence that's missing a pike, and I've got to add that pike. Now, in a situation of right or wrong, there is a specific way to add that pike. If I choose to add it any other way than the one way that we all know is the right way, then it means I've intended to do that wrong. I have intended to do wrong. But if I put it where it is supposed to be, then I did right. The value of my action is now determined by whether or not I intend to perform the task I'm doing right. Now that we've discussed integrity, we can talk about contextual probability. Contextual probability is the predicted available effect of any action you're capable of making. If I tell someone, hey, chances are they're going to say hi back or ignore me. Or they may even fucking give me a stink face for no fucking reason. Who knows? But I know what's possible if I make the choice. I may not know exactly what's going to happen, but I understand the contextual probability of the decision that I'm making. We can observe contextual probability in euphemistic phrases. If I start saying phrases that outside of the context can be taken in a sexual way, like putting it in there, or it's too big. If I start making phrases like that, knowing who I'm around and what they're capable of thinking in response to my sneaking in these phrases that can be taken that way. I'm attempting to almost kind of test the waters to see what's okay. This is euphemistic opportunity. Okay. So imagine two people. These are going to represent the two people. They both got a story together. They met, they lived some for a while, they decided that they liked how they were living together, and they decided to make it happen more. They developed a story, went out and saw parts of the world separate and together, and they are creating a narrative history that influences not only their own story, but the stories of people around them. Now, this rich history that exists between these two people, this story that exists because these two people exist to continue creating it. Imagine I remove one of those people. How do you think that affects the story that this guy's living? Half of his story is gone now. Half of his story doesn't exist. How is he going to connect to any other story around him? This is the essence of sociality. A group of people can have their own narrative of a person all they want. But without them, does that narrative actually exist? If it doesn't exist without them, then it must mean that they were creating it. Being aware that influence is just a measurable result of your behavior, we have to ask the question, is what we're doing influencing what's happening, or is what we're doing caught in the influence of something else taking place? And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching the video. I had a fun and stressful time getting what I needed to make this video. So I really hope the information is valuable. Thank you. Oh, I say like and subscribe and stuff, because do that and stuff. And also leave a comment. Tell me what you think about everything I said. And that's it. Goodbye.